Welcome to the Favorites, the podcast presented by Bet365. We are part of the Volume Podcast Network. I am Chad Millman, Chief Content Officer of the Action Network. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my companion, my compadre, my BFF, professional bettor, Simon Hunter. Hello, Simon.
Hello, Chad. Am I supposed to let you talk about Williams for about 5 minutes before I throw some cold water on it? What do you want to do here?
Let me tell you something. You don't need to throw cold water on it. I had a very urgent phone call today from my buddy Matt. Everybody knows my buddy Matt. We have been Bears fans together from the time we were in the cradle, going to games with his family. They had season tickets. Every 2 days, part of our conversation is about the Bears. I'm walking into the office. He calls me. He goes, "Do you really think the Bears are not going to go over their season win total?" I'm like, I have the Bears as a 7-win team at best. The expectations are too high. I don't care what we're seeing in preseason. That is not regular season. They're in a hard division against two very good teams in a hard conference with really good rosters. This is not a team we are going to get overexcited about. I am not investing in the Bears over season win total. I threw the cold water all on my own, Simon.
That's no fun, but no, that was exciting. Come on now. That was amazing. Him doing Mahomes things.
Oh my God, it's insane.
I get why the Bears fans were going crazy, but at the end of the day, I told you my biggest fear with him right now is just the coaching. Like, that's the fear. And they started the game 0 for 3, three straight 3-and-outs, and it didn't start working until he started improvising. So that's the fear right now, right? That's the big questions with Williams.
Nobody is sold on Eberflus. Nobody is sold on Shane Waldron. It felt like not inspired hire when you're investing as much as you are in Caleb Williams and in this offense. And you mentioned the play calling. Look, we're not going to dissect preseason game play calling, but I will say in the first series he had against the Bills, it was so easy to say, we've got a 3rd and short. Why don't you just run a slant to Keenan Allen? And yet they were trying to have him drop back, send receivers far downfield. It made no sense. I am hopeful that they will start to see what everybody else is seeing, make the easy calls. It is not that hard to let this guy succeed because he is so talented. Just make the calls that are going to put him in a position to succeed. Simon, for today's penultimate installment of our annual NFL Division Preview Series, we are discussing the AFC West, and we are joined by my always antagonist, my always sad he left us, yet still relieved he left us, Mr. Matthew Freedman, one of the dynamos at Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life. Freedman, we had a little chaos before the show began, and it must have felt like home to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be back on the show with you too. I will say with the Caleb Williams stuff, looks awesome. I totally agree about any I don't know. I'm not gonna be able to come up with the right word to describe the coaching staff, but they are using, it's just preseason, they are using more 2 tight end sets than anyone else in the league. And one of the best things about the Bears is that they have 3 really good wide receivers. Why would you use 2 tight end sets more than anyone else when you have 3 really good wide receivers? So we just have to see what this looks like in the regular season, but the coaching staff could very well leave something to be desired.
Matthew Freedman, the only man in sports media who could write a 10,000-word story and yet find himself in a podcast at a loss for words.
That's true.
As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boost with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. Also, reminder, Action Network's popular college football podcast, Big Bets on Campus, now has its own YouTube channel. Search for it, Big Bets on Campus. Head to the BBOC channel on YouTube and subscribe for early access to the best college football coverage. Best college football betting coverage anywhere. Or just follow the link in this episode description. All right, let's get into the AFC West. I have been saying this for every division preview. In 19 of the past 21 seasons, an NFL team has gone from worst to first in its division. Last year, the AFC West was won by the Kansas City Chiefs. In last place, don't forget, in last place, Los Angeles Chargers. So, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but boy, you've got a Justin Herbert, who hopefully will be healthy, a Jim Harbaugh, revamped offensive line, offensive scheme for the Chargers. We're going to get into it for sure. I'm curious to see what Freedman and Simon have to say if this is the year the Chiefs don't dominate the AFC West. Right now, the Chiefs, 5-1 to win the Super Bowl, minus 230 to win the division, 11.5 is the season win total. Reminder, for purposes of this, we are looking at strength of schedule. There's his 12th easiest. We are looking at offensive line rank because that is so important overall for a team's foundational success. Chiefs O-line is top 5, right? D-line is 14. One of only 2 teams whose guards are both rated in the top 15 according to Pro Football Focus. That's Joe Thuney and Trey Smith. They were 9 and 10. Creed Humphrey was 4th overall. Tackles are a weak spot. Donovan Smith, Juwan Taylor, everyone who listens to the favorites can remember David Bakhtiari just naming Juwan Taylor as ruining it for everybody for the way he's jumping out of his stance too early. He had a league-leading 19 penalties last year. All right, boys. Freedman, since you're the guest, we'll start with you. 11.5.
Is it the most boring thing ever just to say, like, each year, as long as the Chiefs aren't any longer than 5-1 or like any shorter than 5-1, rather, like, people should basically just be betting them to win the Super Bowl? Like, Patrick Mahomes, anytime he's longer than like 3-1 to win MVP, maybe bet on Patrick Mahomes to win MVP. I mean, this is like, there was the Montana era, there was the Tom Brady era. Like, we are firmly in the Mahomes era. Think about how bad that offense was last year for the Chiefs. Every year of the Andy Reid era with Patrick Mahomes and that, last season with Alex Smith, the Chiefs have been top 6 in scoring, except for last year. They were number 15 in scoring offense, and they still won the Super Bowl. Like, last year was the golden opportunity for someone to steal a Super Bowl in the Mahomes era, and they didn't do it. This team is going to be better on offense, a little bit worse on defense, but defense is volatile year to year anyway. The Chiefs could easily repeat, and I don't think it would shock anyone. Like, 5-1, I'm not saying like go bet it, but like, that's the line to where if it's 5-1, basically just bet it every year and you probably make money over the next 10 years.
Simon.
Yeah, we're gonna get the other teams this division, but this sadly is a boring division, Chad. It's business as usual, right? You have the best coach with the best quarterback in this division, and the rest of the team is much better than they were last year. I mean, we all feel so much more confident in this offense than we did at this point last year. And we thought, Herbert, that team, the Chargers, they would give them a run for their money last year, and they completely fell apart, Chad. So that was one of our worst, conversations and bets we made last year, was just believing the Chargers maybe had a chance just because there was weakness last year. But now, here we are, Chad. There is no weakness. I already told you, this is a team that I've made a bunch of futures bets on them with, the Eagles and the Lions and Super Bowl futures. It's like, 25, 35 to 1. I want to make those kind of bets because I do think the Chiefs, it's fun to bet on history, and they have it all right now. But for this team, if you like doing what I like doing, betting divisional teams together, who's going to win their division, this is going to be everyone's anchor team. Like, everyone's going to throw this team at the end of their parlays, right? They're going to throw them with the Eagles and maybe the Bills, or then the Eagles and the 49ers. Like, this is the team that you're just going to put in on all your bets just because. In what world do they not win it? Even if he goes down, it is Carson Wentz, right? Say something horrible happens. He goes down in week 8. Do we still, and we're going to talk about these other teams, do we still have any faith in these other teams to get to 10 wins? It's hard to see it, right? Where this team, they're just so complete. I mean, even defensively, we haven't really talked about it, but Spags is like the guy, right? We've seen it time and time again. When he needs to be that guy, he really is. So it's unfair. Not only do they have the best quarterback, but they have such good coaching on the offensive and defensive side. It's the perfect thing. So I think Freeman nailed it. It's like we're going through different eras. Right now, we're in the middle of the Mahomes era, and we all know it. Like, we're seeing something so special, so unique, and you can fight it all you want, but I wouldn't fight it with my money. It's like just bet them at -200 division, bet them the over win total. But yeah, it sadly is a boring division this year, Chad. I just can't go any other way.
Well, it's so interesting, right? Because there have been a few years in the past where we have wanted to fade the Chiefs. We have wanted to fade Mahomes. We didn't think they had the receivers they needed. They were rebuilding their offensive line, but Mahomes is so good and elevates so much of that offense that it kind of doesn't matter what they have between Andy Reid and his creativity and Mahomes and Kelsey, by the way. They put themselves in a really good position. You said something that I think is really important. Defensive line. For defense, I'm going to focus on defensive line. We don't give Steve Spagnuolo enough credit, right? Because he is building a Hall of Fame resume as a defensive coordinator in a way that this defense always plays better than its ranking late in games, late in the season against top tier opponents. That's when they shine. That's when they are at their best. The other team has to have something, and the Chiefs find a way to make a stop. Overall, last year, the defense ranked 2nd in the league in scoring, 4th in total defense, and 1st in sack rate. And that last one is largely because of Chris Jones, who is just so freaking dominant. For that reason alone, you want to be betting on the Chiefs because of how good they have gotten defensively, Simon.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that.
I like when we all agree.
One thing to add really quickly. Simon mentioned.
By the way, I like when we all agree. We're ready to move on. Freedman's got to come in over the top.
Sorry.
I'm sure he's got something he's going to say that will annoy us and make us feel differently.
No, it won't. Just more affirmation to back up what Simon said about the win total with the Chiefs. Andy Reid is 9-2 to the over on his win totals with the Chiefs. Just absolutely unreal.
Incredible.
Like, one of the most consistent bets that you can make in the offseason, year in and year out. Andy Reid going over his win total.
That's right. You know why? I think we can all agree. Andy Reid, when he wins one more Super Bowl, will go down as the greatest coach in NFL history.
No.
Honestly, I think that's accurate.
Look at that. Simon, you were laughing at me.
I need 2 or 3 more. I can't get there yet because I just have so much respect for Bill.
Yeah, but if Andy Reid wins 6 Super Bowls with Patrick Mahomes, which is not out of the question, there's no reason to believe that he can't go down. What he did offensively is as brilliant as what Bill Belichick did defensively.
But see, I disagree just because we always say offense will always be easier. The league is built to cater to the offense. That's why the Belichick thing just blows my mind. Again, people forget that Rams Super Bowl with the Patriots, that was all Belichick. Like, he had his early years and even his later years, he still had his fastball, but it was just so ugly for the last 5 years, Chad. I'm on an island here trying to defend the guy, and I get it, but it's hard to disagree with you. If he gets to 6 Super Bowls, that's a real conversation.
Look, Belichick is already out there. He's like retired. He's dating 20-year-olds. He's not interested in coming back to the NFL anymore. Andy Reid, by the time he retires, he actually might have more wins on his resume than Belichick does.
Yeah.
And so if he's the winningest head coach and he racks up another 1 to 2 Super Bowls with Mahomes, and you add in the fact that Belichick never had success without Brady. Andy Reid has had success making quarterbacks better, like wherever he's been. Like Andy Reid at that point would be the greatest NFL head coach.
Listen, you say Bill Belichick had that win against the Rams. I say Andy Reid had Minnie Mouse with mustard or whatever that play was called, you know, at the end of the game. All right. Our next up, this is where it gets interesting. LA Chargers. According to the strength of schedule, which is the Vegas version of strength of schedule, which is adding up the win totals, projected win totals, according to bookmakers, that the Chargers will face. They have the second easiest schedule. Odds to win the division. This is where it gets fun. Odds to win the Super Bowl, 45-1. Odds to win the division, 320. Season win total, 8.5. So, like, this is a middling team right now. We're not going to sugarcoat it. Their offensive line, middle of the pack at 12th. Everyone likes Rashawn Slater. Everyone's excited about Joe Alt, but we don't really know a lot about this offensive line. Their D-line rank has really dropped, 22nd, according to PFF. You got Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, who are older and injured too often for this unit to be reliable. Freedman, we had Bill Barnwell on. Don't be offended. He came on before you did. He said he loved this team for next year. I do think we're making a little bit of mistake if we discount this team for this season as an over-win total team. And I can make an upside argument, but I want to hear your reaction to what I'm saying.
All right, Chad, I don't know if you remember last year I came on. We talked about the NFC West.
Yes.
And Simon was talking about the Rams and how you could bet them maybe to win the division. I said, you should bet them to win the Super Bowl. All right. I'm going to say the same stupid thing right now about the Chargers. I love them 45-1 to win the Super Bowl. Have you guys ever heard of Peyton Manning? That guy knows ball. I'm just going to say he knows football. He thinks Justin Herbert is a top 5 NFL quarterback. I think the same thing. And I think Jim Harbaugh coming in based on what he did years ago with the 49ers, based on what he did in Michigan, I think he comes in right now and is probably a top 8 NFL head coach, maybe top 5. There are very few teams that have that type of combination of quarterback and head coach who are both in the top 8 at their respective positions. Greg Roman has had success. You maybe don't like what he's done long-term, but he's had success quickly turning around offenses and making them better. Harbaugh has had success with Roman and without Roman. Now, Chad, you mentioned Bosa, Khalil Mack, both, a little bit injured, a little bit older, but if they can stay healthy and if that defense can play just a little bit better, if it can play up to the talent level that it has there with Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr. in the secondary, like that defense could be average. And if you have a really efficient and well-managed offense with an average defense, like that is enough to get a team into the playoffs, especially when they're playing two teams we're going to talk about later, the Broncos and the Raiders. And I think it's worth noting that in the Justin Herbert timeframe with the Chargers, they have always played the Chiefs tight. They are 5-2 against the spread with Herbert at quarterback against the Chiefs. And so if they can sweep the bottom feeders in their division, if they can still win against the Chiefs, go 5-1 in division, you mentioned they have a really easy schedule outside of division. This could actually be a team that I'm not going to say they're going to win the division, but like they could be right there in a really tough out in the playoffs. And a Harbaugh team that is feeling itself once it gets into the playoffs, that feels like a really dangerous team. So 45-1, like I'll just say, it's not going to happen. The Chargers are not going to win the Super Bowl, but this line is too long. It shouldn't be 45-1. It should be 30-1.
I don't disagree with that about that being too long. I don't mind the idea of taking a flyer on the Chargers. I do like their over. Simon, burst my bubble.
There's nothing I love more, Chad, than two guys loving the Chargers in August when Herbert just got to have a walking boot 2 days ago. I mean, this is what I live for. This team, I've taken a large position on them to be the worst in this division, actually. It's just a classic case of Harbaugh's going to come in, and I just think he's going to burn it all down. I think he knows it's a team filled with losers, bad draft picks, and he's going to reinvent in his own identity. So it's like Joe Alt is the first step of that. Like, that guy fits his personality perfect. I think he's going to run the ball so much more than they've ever run in the past, right? That he's going to take the ball out of Herbert's hands, which sounds stupid, but my mentality is he needs to build this kid back up. This kid's never been properly coached in his entire career. I mean, you just go through it. Even when Kellen Moore was there, he didn't trust Kellen Moore. He still tried to play hero ball. Like, Herbert couldn't help but try to throw the ball downfield, which I had no problem with because he had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. That's totally gone. Like, Joshua Palmer, who I love as a sleeper in fantasy football, that's going to be his safety valve all season. These other guys, I just don't like. Ladd McConkey, all these other guys, I just don't have faith in these outside receivers where we've had that in the past, Chad. So to me, this team, it's going to be bad, especially if Herbert's already banged up heading into the season. Like, it's just already starting off on a bad foot. That this guy needed training camp with this new offense. He's missed 2.5 weeks. Like, that's a big deal. So to me, it's already starting off wrong. And I get why people are falling in love with the idea of the future, because I'm with Bill. Like, next year, Barnwell is so right. Like, this is a team next year I'd be a buyer on, right? Because I do think he's going to get rid of a lot of these old guys that are on this team with bad contracts, and they'll kind of be a new team next year. Well, this year, it just feels like they're paying for the couple past years, like, messing up in the draft, overpaying guys that shouldn't overpaid. So to me, I get where you guys are coming from. There's so much to be excited about in the future with this team. I just think it's a year early, right? Like, the other teams to me are further ahead along in this division than they are.
The Broncos, we're going to get to that, but the Broncos are further along. The Raiders and Gardner Minshew. All right, we're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. And we've got a special graphic to prove it, that maybe with the Raiders, you're right. I actually went back and looked at Harbaugh as a coach in his first year with his new teams. Not always great. Like, we've got a vision of Harbaugh coming in, and he is immediately turning a team around. And I think he does have an aura and sort of a mysticism about him that we believe every player buys in. He is so enthusiastic. He knows football. He's a football guy. What he has done, whether it was San Diego or Stanford or the Niners or Michigan, there's a true belief that he's a guy who can make people elevate their play through scheme and through support and through positioning, that they're automatically going to be better. And I think that's what a lot of people are banking on, is sort of the mythology of Jim Harbaugh. They have tried to improve their offensive line. They have brought in Greg Roman. They are favored in 10 games this year. A team that came in last in the AFC West is favored in 10 different games this year. That's how easy their schedule is. So you kind of have to believe that this is a team of at least decent quality with a top 5 quarterback. And I think we all agree he is a good quarterback. We're not denying that. You got to believe.
I think he's an inconsistent quarterback that's never won a playoff game.
Well, Matthew Freedman says Peyton Manning disagrees with you.
They probably have the same agent. I mean, it was just an outlandish comment. It's just, I didn't want to go into it because I was just like, come on, Peyton, you're better than this. But no, I again, this is what people love, the idea of Herbert rather than the results of Herbert. And that's the toughest thing, because it's like, oh, just throw it out there. Wins are not a QB stat. All right, no one's saying it is, but it's like in his draft alone, Joe Burrow has done something. Jalen Hurts has done something, right? Jordan Love in 1 year has done more than we've seen in 6 years of Herbert being a starter. So it's just tough for me to get there, brother.
Freeman, I can't believe he's coming after you like that.
Whatever, Chad. It pains me to say this. I am aligned with you on this. The win total specifically.
Is that where you want to be, Freeman? You know you don't want to be there.
I'll be there. 9.7 is where I have this projected.
Wow.
And, 8.5 is the total there. So this is one of the few win totals that I don't mind betting the over on. I think normally win totals, that's where I want to be taking unders. And if I like a team, I want to be betting on them to win the Super Bowl, win division, things like that. But there's such a large discrepancy here between where this line is and where I have my projection that I don't mind betting this in the win total market as well.
I've changed my mind. I'm all over the under I'm anti Herbert on this right now. Let's get to the Las Vegas Raiders here. Okay?
Finally.
Because they're fascinating to me. And like it's a team where they have decided Gardner Minshew is going to be their starting quarterback. And I'm going to get to the strength of schedule and all that kind of stuff, but that is breaking news and we're dedicated to the news here. So Freedman, give me your take on Gardner Minshew as the starting quarterback over Aiden O'Connell for the Las Vegas Raiders.
I mean, I would say it almost doesn't matter. It had to be Gardner Minshew, but this is the worst quarterback duo in the league. And so it almost didn't matter who was the starting quarterback. I think this is going to be a really uninspiring offense. And I absolutely love the under of 6.5 on the win total. And I will say, look around at different books for this, but 6.5, I think that number should be like 5.5. Really, I think this is going to be such a bad team. But I will say, I think the offense is going to be funneled pretty exclusively through Devontae Adams. And so if you look at the prop market for him, 1,000.5 is his prop number. I think that's too low, even though he's, aging, going to be 32 this year. I think he gets a ton of targets and goes over that number for, like the 5th time in the past 5 years. And then Zamir White over 775.5 rushing yards. I think he smashes that because I think it's going to be an offense that when they're throwing, it's Devontae Adams, and then they're running a lot. And Zamir White gets a lot of that action because I do not believe in Alexander Madison.
Alexander Madison. I love that name. The strength of schedule for this team, by the way, 9th hardest. Plays to the idea that maybe you need to look at their under with Gardner Minshew as quarterback. I do think, look, like last year, there's so much hype about Gardner Minshew and what he did with the Colts. Gardner Minshew is more like the guy who played with the Jaguars inconsistently to me than he is the guy who was a savior for the Colts last year, playing in Shane Steichen's offense, who put him in so many positions to succeed. Simon, you clearly loved the Raiders a second ago when I brought up Gardner Minshew. Like I said, strength of schedule, 9th hardest. 19 is their offensive line rank. Top 10 defensive line, largely because of Max Crosby. So it's about Gardner Minshew. Do they get over 6.5 with Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, I love this team. This is one of my favorite sleeper teams of the year, and it's just simply because people have so much doubt with this team when they're not looking at their only real weakness to me on this team is the cornerback position. It's like the Colts. The Colts secondary, chat, is absolutely terrible, but we still bet their upside. I still have the same feeling here with this Raiders team. It's like, yeah, their secondary, it's an issue. That to me is a big issue. But this team, there's so much better than people are getting credit for. I know Chad's not a huge fan of Minshew. I mean, I'll never forget this summer. We were doing a show, and I said that if you sent Minshew 35 years back into time and he played on the Dallas Cowboys, he too could win 6 Pro Bowls and make 0 All-Pros. And Chad was disgusted in that. He's like, no, only Troy Aikman can make 6 Pro Bowls and 0 All-Pros behind the best team in all the 90s. So I just don't think you understand how that Minshew's not as bad as people perceive. Like, he's been on pace with guys like Trevor Lawrence in his career stat numbers. Like, he's just as good as these guys who people build up. And it's just because it's Minshew. Like, I get where they're coming from. Like, you look at this guy on tape and he doesn't look like an NFL starting quarterback. He's small. He's quirky. He sometimes makes horrible reads. But last year, the Colts, a lot of this stuff wasn't his fault. I mean, even going back to that last game where they almost beat Houston, he was 1 completion away on a 4th down from them being in the scoring position to beat Houston, right? He didn't make that running back drop that ball. That was a good pass. It was the running back that did drop it. So it's like, Minshew, yes, is he inconsistent? I totally agree with that. But what you're failing to see on this offense is this is going to be an old school 12 personnel offense with arguably one of the most talented tight ends we've ever seen in the history of football coming to the league in Brock Bowers. Like, people don't understand when Nick Saban's talking about you, saying there was only 2 players he feared playing last year. One was Neighbors, who I already told you I'm obsessed with Neighbors. The next was Bowers. Like, he can't believe how incredibly talented this kid is. And you can run him in every way. You can run him out of the fullback. You can split him out of tight end. You can split him out at wide receiver. Like, this kid is literally the future of the league, his type of playing style, like him and Sam Laporta. So to me, they're already hitting it on the nail on the head. Like, they're running 12 personnel, and they're using Brock Bowers in crazy positions. I'm not even talking about Myers, the guy they took last year, who's another great tight end. And then you mix in the fact that their wide receiver position is pretty strong. Their offensive line is better than people perceive. I love this offense. Now, defensively, Chad, I can't believe you bring this up. They have Christian Wilkins, one of the best D tackles all of football, came from Miami and joined this team. Max Crosby plus 700 to win Defensive Player of the Year. I love that bet. Like, I am very, very heavily invested in him being Defensive Player of the Year just because he's never had this before. He's never had a guy getting doubles in the middle. Like, it's going to be insane watching this D line now with that kind of setup. So I get the hesitation. Like, no one wants to say they're putting 5 figures on Minshew and the Raiders over win total, but I am. Like, I love this team, and I think Pierce is Tomlin 2.0. He's a motivator of men. Like, last year, that team should have fell apart, and he pulled them all together and had some incredible wins down the stretch, and I think that carries over this season. So this is a team that, yeah, I think they're second best in this division right now, and I think Minshew is heavily underrated by public perception. There's that stat I was looking for. Look at that graphic, Chad.
Let's all right, so we're getting super fancy in our show here today. Gardner Minshew, in his years as a starting quarterback versus Trevor Lawrence in his years as a starting quarterback. Freedman, Gardner Minshew, 6.92 yards per attempt. Trevor Lawrence, 6.73. Yards, touchdown percentage, 4.2% for Gardner Minshew, 3.3% for Trevor Lawrence. QBR, 89.3 for Gardner Minshew, 85 for Trevor Lawrence. Interception percentage, 1.7% for Gardner Minshew, 2.2% for Trevor Lawrence. Didn't Trevor Lawrence just get like 150 mil guaranteed?
I think he got 200 million, brother.
For basically mid, as the kids say, mid stats, and the promise of potential because he's got pretty great hair and a good arm and had one epic comeback against a guy Simon Hunter doesn't even think is a very good quarterback in Justin Herbert.
I didn't say that.
And this guy's got a bag because Doug Peterson is his coach, and Gardner Minshew is bouncing around as a journeyman, and he's got the better stats as a starter than Trevor Lawrence. Come on, Freedman.
Yeah,
drink the Kool-Aid, Freedman.
What you're not saying is that Trevor Lawrence, like for a third of his career stats, has the stink of Urban Meyer all over him.
That's not counting Urban Meyer's year. We threw that out.
You did?
Oh,
yeah, it's the last 2 years.
Look at that.
All right.
Oh, so no, Freedman.
Now I've been dunked on, but also 2023, Trevor Lawrence was injured. Like, I think it's worth taking that into account. But yeah,
sure.
Trevor Lawrence has disappointed. That doesn't mean that Gardner Minshew is the answer for the Raiders. Like, part of this is I have no faith in Luke Getsy as the offensive coordinator. Like to what Simon said, think about this. They are going to run a very antiquated 2 tight end system. And even if you think that Brock Bowers is the future of the league, talking about, oh, this guy's so versatile, we can line him up at fullback. Talking about that is almost the sign of like, wait a minute, this offense could be in big trouble if you're thinking of 2 tight ends as the solution to a run-heavy offense quarterbacked by Gardner Minshew. Like, this could be a massive disaster. If they win games, they barely win games. And if they lose games, they get absolutely boat raced with that kind of offense that they have. And I know in the second half of the season, their defense looked a lot better, but like they were also playing some pretty subpar quarterbacks for a lot of that stretch. So I don't want to put too much weight on like what could have been just kind of like randomness in the second half of a season. This is a bad team, Simon, a very bad team.
I guess Patrick Mahomes is just some random quarterback that they beat on Christmas Day.
That's the one game.
It's a big game, though. It sparked the man to win another Super Bowl.
Well, look, this is where it gets interesting, right? Like, is it one game that was an anomaly? Is it the one game that proves of what they can be with Antonio Pierce as coach? I did not look, Freedman. I did not know.
Chad hated this team 2 months ago. This is a lot of work for me to try to spin him here.
I did not know Simon was going to come this strong
Yeah.
on the Raiders. This was the first we've talked about it. I'm shocked to get this feedback from him right now. I'm shocked to hear he's 5 figures deep.
When do you see what we're going to do week 1, Chad? It's about to get real gross real quick. +3 against the Chargers. Whew. Whew.
Well, look, if they're on the road, I can take that. Or actually, if they're the home dog.
No, they're on the road +3.
All right. Well,
I'll talk to you in 2 weeks. We'll talk about it.
I feel like we're going to find 5 games we like better than that game. But Freedman, he makes a convincing case.
Does he? I don't think so. His case is, this 2 tight end offense is going to be awesome based on what we might see out of a rookie tight end. That never works.
Simon, he makes a convincing
No, I'm bringing
case.
him up because you never even mentioned him. You were just talking about Devontae Adams. It's like, dude, you're forgetting about Brock Bowers here, 1st-round pick. I know you don't watch a lot of college football, bro, but this dude's that guy.
Look. I know about Brock Bowers.
I hope you do. You didn't mention him. It makes me a little nervous.
I didn't mention him because I don't think his prop number is especially bettable, but I did think that Devontae Adams has a bettable prop number.
That's fair.
Can I interest anybody in the Chargers over 8.5?
Yes.
Take the alternated line under 6.5 Chargers, people. Have fun with it.
Oh my God. Now it just Freedman, now it just feels like it's personal against you.
I'm cooking.
All right. So we like Simon loves the Raiders. Honest to God, this is the first I've heard you have this strong of opinion on the Raiders. And it feels like one of the stronger opinions you've had for any of the division previews that we've done. So that makes me want to ask you right now, in your sort of pantheon of futures bets, season win totals bets, where do the Raiders stand in terms of the amount of money put down versus the other bets?
I mean, I definitely have 3 times the amount on the Chiefs to win this division. Like, that's definitely my biggest bet. I mean, that's just the safest. I got no issue locking up my money for 7 months on the Chiefs. That's a lot of harder pill to swallow when you're talking the Raiders. And like we said, Minshew, right? Even though I'm getting the guys back here, it's like everything Freeman said is true, man. The wheels could fall off this by week 7 and I look like an idiot. But I just love the way this team's set up and how they're just being doubted by everybody except the guys in Vegas. Like we talked months ago, I told you, don't take this under because you were like talking about taking their under win total. I said, listen, all the guys in Vegas I'm talking to, they love this team as a sleeper team. And the more I've looked into it and the more I've researched it, it works out. It's like, this team does have really good pieces to it. Their defense is not as bad as people perceive them to be, even though I do agree that their secondary does have question marks. But yeah, Chad, this team and the next team we're talking about, these are 2 teams that, unfortunately, the word is out on Denver. But a month ago when I was betting them at the sports book, no one was going there betting the Denver team. Same with the Vegas team. So these are 2 teams that definitely are professional against public perception.
Freeman,
what
why
a
are you
surprise!
lifting your hands?
Gotta say, what a surprise that the guys in Vegas like the team in Vegas. I never would have anticipated that.
These are like 70-year-old men. You think they give a fuck about the Raiders in Vegas? They don't care about the Raiders.
I'm just saying
in Vegas.
it is in the atmosphere. And one thing I will say, like, okay, is it possible to say anything about kind of like the market in general? I know that there's one specific sports book that, is attached to this show, but I'll just say generally there is the big domestic sports books. There are some that are not in Nevada. There's one that is. The one that is in Nevada has a lot of liability that is built up on the Raiders. The other domestic books that aren't in Nevada aren't taking nearly as much Raiders money. Like, that is kind of the sign. People in Vegas are betting on Vegas.
Yeah, those people aren't. I mean, not all the people live in Vegas are professionals, though. You know that, right?
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is, like, saying the guys in Vegas are betting on Vegas doesn't really mean
all right. The
much.
guys in Cleveland, like, I'm just talking about pros, bro. I'm not talking about the actual guys in Vegas. It's just a thing we say here. Don't look too much into it.
Okay,
it's not a literal interpretation.
Yeah,
it's wise guys. The guys in Vegas.
Well, then you could just say sharps. If you are saying the guys in Vegas, that could easily be read as a literal statement because that's what you're saying. Most people say sharps.
Not me. I refuse to say that word.
All right. I do want to talk about the Broncos.
Let's go.
Because look, this team, I think we all believe they were kind of a shit show at the end of last year.
Yeah.
Then they drafted Bo Nix, who you could telegraph that Sean Payton loved this guy and that he was going to be the one of all the quarterbacks getting drafted. It has been a constant conversation. Bo Nix has performed very well in the preseason. People have been surprised. Again, it's preseason. We're not getting too hyped up about Bo Nix. 300-1 to win the Super Bowl. 18-1 to win the division. That is double the odds of the Raiders at 9-1. 5.5 is the season win total. All right, Simon. We know how you feel about the Raiders. You've already teased that there is some interest in buying into the Broncos. Make your case. Make your case. And Freedman, I hope you're fucking taking notes because I know you're going to want to go the other way.
Yeah, it's just the fact that you could have got him at 20-1, Bo Nix, whatever that 3 weeks ago to be offensive rookie of the year. It sucks that that's gone now, Chad, because it's the secret's out, right? And I didn't give it on the show. I bet him and I bet JJ, which, even if I didn't believe JJ was going to be the best player, the best rookie, the value was just too long. Like, it was just too much respect given to the top two guys, and Williams and Daniels. Got lucky I didn't give out JJ on the show because obviously he got hurt, and that's a dead bet now. The flip side, Bo Nix, if you still want to bet it, I don't hate it, but the value is obviously gone at this point. Like, the hype, Chad just said it, it's just too much. People are going crazy because he went, 9 for 10 with that passing touchdown in a preseason game, which, again, he looked good, but it's like, don't overreact too much to it. It is vanilla. And if you know anything about Bo Nix, he can look incredible for a quarter and then completely throw 3 picks in the next quarter. Like, that is the Bo Nix experience. Like, that's just always been his graft about him. It's just an inconsistent guy. The hope is, the reason I'm positive about this team and betting this over is because he's with, to me, one of the smartest offensive minds in all of football, and Sean Payton. And it's like, if he just listens to Sean Payton, right? He does not go out and do crazy Bo Nix thing. He just stays within the offense, follows his coach every week, coaching him up on what to do, play by play. There is a world here where this team can get to 6-7 wins. Like 5.5, their win total. It feels right, but I like the over because I just have them at 6 wins. So to me, this is a team that I don't think defensively and offensively they'll be as bad as they were last year, because it felt like that team had so much drama, Chad, behind the scenes. They kind of gave up, right? At one point, where like, we know they kind of have players, right? They aren't that team that lost by 70 points to Miami, right? There's a middle of their ground. So to me, Bo Nix, it's not something I'm heavily invested in. Like, I'm more invested in the Raiders and this Chiefs team, but it's a team that I like their over because I just think Sean Payton's such a good coach. It's like, I just can't see another season of them only getting 5 or 4 wins. Like, it's just, there's too many questions there that I'm not giving them out to, shock the world and be the second in this division with Bo Nix, but it's like, I do believe offensively, defensively, they'll be improved from where they were last year. And last year, they were a 3-4 win team. So it's like, not shocking to think they can get 2 more wins after such a disaster year last year.
8th hardest strength of schedule. O-line is 15th. Not really anything to say about it.
Nah.
D-line, 31st, according to Pro Football Focus.
Yeah.
The best addition, John Franklin Myers from the New York Jets, goes from being expendable with the Jets to being the best defensive lineman with the Broncos.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Freedman, talk to me.
I have this projected at 5.7. So like right in line with the win total market of 5.5. But to echo Simon's point, Nix is really intriguing. I don't think he has a chance to win offensive rookie of the year if the Broncos are in that 5.5 win range. But the thing is, I'm assuming he's going to start in week 1. And that makes him, I think, very live to lead all of the rookies in passing yardage. And there are some props that you can bet in that. And he's not the leader in that market. Like, he trails Williams and Jaden Daniels by a pretty healthy margin in that market. So I would be looking to bet him in that regard, because I think if he's starting week 1 in terms of his passing production, because he has, as Simon said, like one of the best offensive minds guiding him in Sean Payton, he could lead all of the rookies in passing yards, especially because this defense is not good. They do have a hard strength of schedule, and so they might need to throw the rock a decent amount. And so I could see Bo Nix having a pretty good year statistically, even if this offense, doesn't really blow up, and even if this team in general still kind of disappoints and is, on the subpar side.
I like that idea. That's That's a real.
Yeah, that's more fun. That's
Yeah, you
definitely
can
a way
break
funner
that
bet than
down.
betting their win total.
Right. And it makes sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
the Bears could be competitive. And so it's very possible they do want to run the ball a little bit more and be more conservative, especially with their coaching staff. Sean Payton will let it rip. And if he feels like he has a guy who can execute his offense, even if it's dink and dunk, 10-yard slants, screens, things that Drew Brees was so good at that he feels like he might be able to get the next generation of out of Bo Nix, he's a high risk, play caller. So that's a really good idea.
Yeah, 5-1. That's where I put it in the bet tracker at Fantasy Life. It's still available at plus 450, and I still like it at that number.
Good. All right. Freedman, I feel like I know where Simon stands on his best bets for this division. Chiefs 5-1, win the Super Bowl. Chiefs, minus whatever to win the division.
I think it's up to like 230.
Yeah, it's like minus 230 to win the division.
Yeah.
And inappropriate amount on the Raiders over 6.5, and probably a little bit touch less on the Chargers under 8.5. Give me your favorite AFC West bet.
So the favorite is 45-1 Chargers to win the Super Bowl. I know it's ridiculous, not going to happen. It's still my favorite. And I will say, like, if I had to have like ancillary favorite bets, I will be with Simon 5-1 on the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. I like that one. And then I would just kind of put this earmark of anytime this season, the Chiefs are underdogs. If it happens, just bet them. I don't need any other information on that. Like, just bet them in that situation.
If you want to bet early lines, they are 1 game underdog against the 49ers on the road, I believe. So you could, if you want to take a position right now, you can. I mean, obviously you can't get that much down, but still, if you want to get it now, Freeman's right. You can get him as a dog.
All right. As a reminder, the Favorites podcast is presented by Bet365. Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than with anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boosts. Check out the boost and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, restrictions apply. I want to thank our good friend and nemesis, Matthew Freedman from Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life, for coming on the show today. Simon and I will return with our next episode of The Favorites on the Action Network YouTube page on Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern to talk NFC West, the final of our division previews in our series previewing every division. Download us from Spotify, Apple Pods, wherever you get your pods. Rate, review, subscribe. Leave us 5 stars. Say whatever you want. Feedback is a gift. Till next time. Love you.